name is Julia, and I'm 49 years old. I've been married to my husband, Trick, for 20 years now. Last year, our son left for college out of state, giving us some newfound free time, however with expenses for our son. I decided to take on a part-time job. I had been a stay-at-home mom since the birth of our son, so initially there were many challenges and a lot of learning on the job. Yet lately, I feel more valued as my opinions are taken into consideration at work, which brings a sense of accomplishment. Hey Rit, I heard they're going to give me a slight raise. It feels good to be appreciated for hard work. I cheerfully chatted to him, who was absent-mindedly watching TV. Then, out of the blue, he said, "Does that mean you can support yourself now?" Taken aback by his unexpected comment, I replied, "Huh?" He turned to me, a smug grin on his face, and began, "I've been meaning to tell you." That smirk hinted at bad news. "I've met someone else. I don't need you anymore." I was dumbfounded. "Could you get the divorce papers and the marriage license from the city hall tomorrow?" he asked nonchalantly. I was so shocked. I could barely understand what was happening. "What do you mean? You've met someone else and want a divorce, and then you want to marry her?" Realizing the gravity of the situation, I felt my body tremble with emotion. He laughed scornfully at my reaction. "I still have plenty of life left in me, unlike you who's given up on your femininity. We haven't been intimate in so long, there's no point in being together." His blunt words were hurtful. Yes, it's been a long time since we were close, but it wasn't because I had given up on my femininity, and honestly, expecting me to be attracted to an overweight, middle-aged man like him. No thanks. Angry and amused at the same time, I burst into laughter. "You always said you were too tired, too busy, and that everything was a hassle. You're the one who avoided me. Now we suddenly want to live as a man. What a joke." Rick's expression turned hostile. "What's so funny? Cut the crap, old lady," he snapped, crossing his arms and leaning back smugly. "Abby is, Maina. You're nothing like Mally. She's head over heels for me, always bragging about how I'm the best boyfriend ever. And look at you. A raise? Getting all giddy over such small beans? How pathetic." Rick started showing off about this woman named Mally, who seems to be his side chick, and began looking down on me. "Mally? That's her name. That's Mally Megri." He probably spoke of Mally. She's a younger woman, in her mid-20s, working in the nightlife industry. And she's carrying his child. It's not unusual for age gap relationships these days, but the idea of a soon-to-be father of a 20-year-old having a child with a woman not much older than his son was sickening. "We all need love in our lives. Not from someone cold and moldy like you, but someone fresh and young, like Mally," he said, emphasizing the point. "Oh, so he's bought her affections. Let me get this straight. You've moved on to a young, naive girl who's okay with being a homewrecker for money. I see. So you switched to a young girl who's after money, has no problem having an affair with a married man, and lacks good judgment," he angrily retorted. "It's not about the money. It's love. I need to marry her as soon as possible. Pack your stuff and get out." I was astounded by his selfishness, and suddenly the whole situation seemed ridiculous. When was the last time he spoke about love to me? I bet that woman, Mally, will also show no reaction after a while. See, with time and age, those fleeting feelings are bound to fade. Soon enough, he'll treat Mally the same way he's treating me now. I couldn't help but laugh. "You're such a disappointment. I should have realized before we got married. All these years, I've taken care of the house and our child while he stood back and criticized." Appreciation, even in a time when it was taken for granted, there wasn't a hint of love, not even a word of appreciation. And now he's discarding me for a younger woman. I just couldn't believe it. However, he seemed to think I was being bitter. "If there's no problem, then let's wrap this up. Get the papers by the next weekend." He then locked himself in a room. For the next few days, I faced sleepless nights and countless tears. On the surface, I pretended to be unfazed, but on the next holiday, he had the audacity to invite that mistress into our home. "Come out, Dick's old wife. Sure, I'm here for the procedure." Melly, as she called herself, hummed a tune as she plopped down on the sofa, crossing her legs confidently. As he said, she has glowing skin, and tell from her behavior that she is confident in her appearance. Given her nighttime profession, her flashy makeup and overly revealing attire were no surprise. Her top was cut so low it was borderline indecent. Her tight skirt was so short it left little to the imagination. However, I had a hunch that she wasn't truly in love with him. If my intuition was right, her real motive was surely having already come to terms with the idea of divorce. I confronted her. I wasn't planning on challenging her, but something about the way she spoke rubbed me the wrong way. Nellie, was it? Were you aware that Rick was married when you two started seeing each other? Referring to me as his ex-wife, that means you're well aware of our respective positions, right? She laughed it off and said, I'm not stupid, you know? Don't underestimate me, old lady. You're the one getting dumped, and I'm about to be Rick's wife. Simple as that. She sneered, speaking with a slight lisp. I'm glad you're so forthcoming. I've recorded this conversation, you know. Which means you're aware I can sue you for damages, right? I showed her the recorder that had been capturing our exchange. This isn't what we discussed. He tried to soothe the visibly irritated Melly. Calm down. I've got it all figured out. Right. Melly, don't get so worked up. Their conversation was genuinely disturbing. I grimaced, and he produced some papers. Sign the divorce papers with these terms. The papers laid out the conditions of the divorce, including alimony and splitting assets. But you're giving this old lady $200,000? That's gonna cut into my share. Without me even pressing the matter, she inadvertently revealed her true intentions. I'm getting less now, she kept repeating. It became clear to me. Her goal was the inheritance he was in the process of securing from his recently deceased father. Come on, please. This includes child support. He seemed to find even her blatant attitude endearing. Is this some sort of payoff? It's so expensive. It was hard for me to contain my growing anger. Nonetheless, having confirmed my suspicions, I stated, if you can provide the divorce terms in a legally binding agreement, this will be sufficient. Additionally, I'd like the payment made in a lump sum. I kept my responses brief and to the point. Knowing the conversation was being recorded, he agreed to my terms. Are you satisfied now? While I was talking with Rick, Allie, looking bored, urged us to finish up. You're moving out by the end of the month, right? I've already given notice at my place. I'll submit the divorce papers once the formal agreement is prepared. I'll move out as soon as that's done. She muttered complaints under her breath, clearly having expected to move in sooner and left begrudgingly. Some time passed, the legal paperwork was completed, and our divorce was finalized. And right on cue, she came to kick me out of the house. Korea, stop dilly-dallying and get out. She laughed gleefully. I just filed our marriage license. This lovely house is mine. I reluctantly handed her the house keys, just wanting to confirm something. I asked, isn't Rick about the same age as your parents? If you call me an old lady, he's practically an old man. Would choose him as your husband. Her candid reply matched my suspicions perfectly. Rick's a top executive at a major company. This house is newly renovated and close to the station. It's a stylish single-family home. And I'll just change the furniture to my taste. She daydreamed for a moment. Rick treats me like a princess. She was clearly gloating, my future's all set. I hope everything goes as you wish. I sighed deeply and left the house I'd lived in for many years. I moved into a dormitory at a local college. Nowadays, it's quite rare, but I was hired as a live-in dormitory matron. You see, up until that point, I was working part-time in a company cafeteria. After breaking up with Rick, I decided to start anew, far away. When I explained my situation to my part-time job, my boss, who had always appreciated my hard work, spoke up on my behalf to the head office. Just as there was a vacancy due to an employee's retirement, I gratefully accepted the position at the dormitory. It's a good thing I got my nutritionist certification. My rent and utilities are super cheap. While I don't have much free time to go out, it's a comfortable and fun workplace. After living this way for about 3 months, I got a call from Rick. My mom's in a bad state. Can you help with her care? The nerve of him to ask that. You and I are strangers now. It should be Mally's responsibility. When I pointed out the obvious, he said, Mally is pregnant. Mom seems to have dementia and throws stuff. It's dangerous. So it's okay for her to throw stuff at me? That's some logic, but no thank you. Just stay out of my life and don't call me again. I strongly pushed back. I'd known his mother for 20 years since we got married. While we didn't have major battles, we weren't exactly on friendly terms either. Plus, I just started living on my own. I couldn't possibly take care of someone else. Yet, somehow, he found out where I was and came to visit with that woman. If you can't help with the care, give back the money I paid you as alimony. What a ridiculous thing to say. Why would I do that? I coldly responded, and she gave me a furious glare. You knew, didn't you? There's no inheritance as we expected, and it's all debt. Just with a yell, she scattered the document she threw at me. That's a horrible thing to say. You just assumed he had assets. Sign. I shrugged intentionally. That's right, when I was handling the inheritance procedures after his father's passing, I found out about a large debt. Normally, one could just decline the inheritance, but Rick had already terminated his father's cell phone contract, sold household items and jewelry, and converted it all to cash. According to the law, if you touch any assets before declining an inheritance, you can't decline it anymore. That's exactly what happened. As a result, all the debt fell on Rick and her, with a triumphant tone. I said, Rick dumped all the inheritance procedures on me and never listened. That money was used to sustain your relationship with Melly. Fake protested, you should have told me something this important. Well, that's rich coming from him. You should have listened when you had the chance. Now the two of you have to bear the responsibility. I didn't know. I didn't hear anything. She was panicking, her face pale. So you're just going to pretend you don't know and take all the money for yourself. They both pressed me, but I didn't care. It's funny you say that. If you hadn't cheated, you wouldn't have needed to raise money for your affair, and you could have declined the inheritance. It's undoubtedly your fault. Dang. He groaned and took a step back. Molly, you knew he was married, pursued a relationship for inheritance. Inheritance even made a child and forced me out. This is the position you wished for. I lectured the woman who's old enough to be my daughter. If I knew it'd be like this, I wouldn't need an old man like him. I still had something to say. Do you remember the divorce agreement? I received alimony, pension, and child support from Rick. But I can also claim damages from you. What? The $200,000 isn't enough for you. Wait, you're too greedy? She shouted, unable to believe it. No, I was going to forget about it if you two left me alone. But you come up with this nonsense about caregiving and returning alimony. There's only so much I can take. I had recorded our discussions about the divorce conditions with Rick and her, and I informed them I was serious about the damages claim. She turned and ran off without a second look, touching her. I turned back to the stunned Rick. She can run pretty fast for being in her late pregnancy, huh? Is she really pregnant? And where's the love now that she's run off? At my question, he gulped. I messed up. Please, come back. His teary eyes made him look suddenly aged. Thanks, but no thanks. Please leave. Julia. The sobbing ex-husband looked pathetic. I mean everything he'd done. I had no sympathy left. Soon after, as I'd expected, she disappeared, leaving behind only a divorce paper. It seems the pregnancy was a lie after all. Rick is reportedly worn out and has lost weight due to the stress of handling both his debts and taking care of his mother all by himself. As for me, I've found my groove working as a house mother for kids around the same age as my son. Lately, folks have even been telling me I look younger. I aim to keep my nose to the grindstone, not get ahead of myself, and just live an honest life. Everyone, please be careful when you're going through a divorce. Thank you for watching the video all the way to the end. If you resonated with the content, please leave a positive rating and a comment. I'm myself a new wife, so I'm divorcing you. He handed me the divorce papers just like that. Who even says something in that manner? I responded to Davis with a hint of anger. What are you talking about? Explain yourself properly. Well, you're in a wheelchair. Umpt means I'd have to take care of you, right? I don't want that, so divorce. Melly, help me? What should I do now? Davis was in a frenzy, his words barely comprehensible. His breakdown was anything but ordinary. Who the heck are you? I responded calmly. What do you moo? It's me, Davis. At first, with his extreme change in demeanor, I couldn't recognize him, but upon hearing his voice, I knew immediately. When I pretended not to know him on purpose, he got pretty flustered. My name is Mally, a 46-year-old housewife. We have one daughter, Anne, who's 21. I live with my husband, Davis, who's 4 years my senior, and our daughter. After graduating from a community college, I got a job at a construction company. Davis, who used to sell construction equipment, frequently visited my company. His energetic salesmanship caught my eye, and I really liked his vibe. He was always energetic with a loud voice. At times, he'd get ahead of himself and people would give him funny looks, but I had a good impression of him. When he asked me out, I quickly said yes. One thing led to another, and we ended up getting married. Our only daughter, Anne, is a senior in college and has already secured a job offer. She's planning to work at a bank. She can commute from her house, so the three of us will probably continue to live together for a while. Anne has already finished her thesis and is now enjoying her last days as a student. With child-rearing mostly behind me, I was feeling a bit relieved. However, not everything was perfect. Davis, due to his unhealthy lifestyle over the years, has a liver condition. He can't drink his beloved alcohol and has to stick to a restricted diet. Although working wasn't an issue, he had frequent hospital visits, which led to many absences and tardies at work. His energy levels dropped drastically, leading him to switch from a sales position to an office-based role. Despite my concerns about him, overall I felt happy. Your liver function has improved significantly. Just keep up your current lifestyle. Recently, perhaps due to his healthy eating, his medical tests came back positive. It had been a while since I'd seen him smile that brightly. Thank you. So does that mean I can lead a normal life now? The doctor responded with a friendly smile. Yes, indeed. A lot of this improvement is thanks to your diet. Your wife has been doing a great job. I was so happy that I couldn't help but beam. I've never once heard Davis say, "It's all thanks to you," or anything of that sort. Tears swelled up in my eyes, and I dabbed them with a handkerchief. The doctor's acknowledgement of my efforts meant the world to me. Davis frowned, seemingly displeased. Doc, what are you talking about? It's because I took my meds and took care of myself, right? Perhaps he wasn't pleased with me receiving praise. He sounded like a child whose accomplishment was being overshadowed. His words deflated the joy I was feeling. Of course, medication is important, but with your condition, diet plays the most crucial role. It's thanks to your wife that you are where you are now. You can never thank her enough. The doctor tried to explain this to Davis, but it didn't seem to get through to him. He wore his dissatisfaction plainly on his face. It felt like he would direct more of his displeasure at the doctor, so I thanked the doctor and quickly wrapped up our appointment. I tried to lighten his mood. Davis immediately called his parents after returning home to update them on his situation. He sounded genuinely happy during that call. It might have been because of his illness, but I thought he was a small-minded man. Everyone at the office was really happy for me. It's probably because I've been doing good things. I'm quite different from y'all, aren't I? He was in high spirits when he returned from work. I thought it was harsh of him to take flattery at face value and then belittle Anne and me. When I was about to retort, Davis blurted out something outrageous. "And they're throwing me a get-well party?" It's been a while since I could have a drink. I was skeptical of his words. "The get-well party? You aren't fully recovered. How did you explain it to them?" He looked puzzled. Despite it being about his health, he seemed clueless. The doctor said I could live a normal life, didn't he? The normal the doctor referred to is your normal, not what's normal for a healthy person. He looked visibly annoyed. Do I fuss over the details? I know myself best. One day won't hurt. Indeed, he'd refrained from his beloved alcohol for a long time. Considering his recent medical results, I could understand his urge to drink. Though worried, I decided to let him have his way. All right, go ahead, but avoid salty foods and limit your drinking to just a toast. Davis must be on cloud 9 since he got permission, and he's wearing a smile I've never seen before. Davis says, "Is it okay for me to go?" "Thank you. Just remember our deal, Doug?" Yeah, got it. He is not listening to me at all. I was filled with apprehension, not sure if he'd keep his words. Nevertheless, Davis went to the drinking party. When he returned that night, he was in great spirits. He was so drunk that a colleague had to get him a taxi to drink that much alcohol. It seemed all his prior restraint was in vain. After that, Davis began attending drinking parties once a week. He never consulted me. He'd just go on his own accord. His actions further fueled my anxiety. Just one evening during dinner, Davis started complaining about the blandness of his restricted diet. "Isn't this a bit tasteless? It's not appetizing at all," he said. He'd always been content with the food, even saying it was delicious. Probably his palate had gotten used to the strong flavors from the parties. One day, he even bought and ate some convenience store snacks, the kind perfect with alcohol. Surrounded by people who believed he was fully recovered, perhaps he started believing it too. I was overwhelmed with worry. I felt that if this continued, something bad was bound to happen. Despite my warnings, Davis was dismissive. My last results were good. "I'll be fine." All I could do was sigh and massage my temples. His good health couldn't last forever. One night, Davis was rushed to the emergency room with severe abdominal pain and a fever. The doctor's words were heavy and foreboding. Mr. Davis, you have cirrhosis of the liver and it's quite advanced. You've been continuing with your education and diet plan, right? We took the meds. As for the diet, he awkwardly looked down. Both the doctor and I were taken aback. I silently murmured in my mind, "It's your own doing." The doctor likely felt the same. At this point, all we can do is slow down its progression and alleviate the symptoms. And you also need to watch out for pancreatic cancer. Cancer? Doc, isn't there anything you can do? There must be some other treatment, right? Desperately, Davis clung to the doctor, tears streaming down his face. There is a possibility, but please tell me, what is it? A transplant. First, a liver transplant. There is a treatment, then. Please, I want the transplant. It's not that simple. We first need to see if there's a donor available. Isn't there one right here? He grabbed my arm. The donor has to volunteer willingly. I genuinely wanted him to recover, but honestly, I was scared. I couldn't answer on the spot. Meanwhile, Davis's eyes sparkled with hope. When can we do the test? Sooner is better, right? He was already set on getting the transplant. My feelings seemed irrelevant to him. After much contemplation, I decided to get tested to be a donor. Turns out I was a match. From there, the time to the surgery flew by. The procedure ended quicker than I expected. Both Davis and I had a successful surgery. I was hospitalized for 3 weeks, and during that time, Anne came to take care of me. Even after, Anne continued to visit the hospital to care for Davis. He spent several days in the ICU, then moved to the general ward. He was discharged after 3 months. His recovery was smooth with no complications. Rejection, or signs of infection. A year later, Davis returned to society and started going to work again. His complexion had changed from before, and he looked full of life and more vibrant than ever. I truly believed I had done the right thing by going through with a transplant. However, my health took a downturn. I started coughing, felt dizzy, and often couldn't stand on my own. I thought it might be due to the surgery and got it checked during a routine visit. But they found nothing. After visiting various hospitals, I was diagnosed with lung cancer. I didn't even smoke. But apparently anyone can get it. There weren't specific symptoms for my cancer, so it undetected. Fortunately, it was discovered early, and I was told it could be treated with chemo and radiation. However, the dizziness persisted, and I had to rely on a wheelchair. It was after a while of Davis and I leading reserved roles in our lives that a serious situation arose one night. When Davis didn't come home, I was worried something happened. But Anne handed me her phone. I saw a photo of Davis drinking happily with coworkers at a bar. This was taken 10 minutes ago. Anne looked appalled. I was shocked. It was just a year since his liver transplant, and here he was. I wonder if Davis even realizes he's sick. Does he have any idea how much trouble he's caused? The family, I shouldn't have worried. Let's just go to bed. But he didn't come home that day. When he didn't return the next morning, I called his cell phone. He didn't answer, but a message was sent. The message read, "I left the divorce papers in the bedroom. Please submit them." I was shocked and dropped my phone on the floor. I called out loudly for Anne and asked her to check Davis's room. Anne came down to the living room, her face pale. "Mom, look at this." In Anne's hand was a piece of paper. When I took it, I was taken aback. "What's this?" I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was a filled-out divorce form. "I can't believe it. What kind of person is he?" Anne's face was red, tears filling her eyes. I, on the other hand, felt calm. I felt more resigned than angry or sad. Then my phone rang. It was Davis. I took a deep breath and answered. As soon as Davis heard my voice, he began talking cheerfully. "Found a new wife, so I want a divorce. Who just hands over divorce papers and says something like that?" I replied, trying to hold back my anger. "What do you mean, explain properly?" "There's not much to explain. You're in a wheelchair now." "Right, I'd have to take care of you. And I don't want that, so divorce." Everything went black before my eyes. More than shock, I felt disgust and pity. Anne snatched the phone from me and yelled at Davis, "Who's this new girlfriend? Are you even human?" For my part, I still couldn't quite believe it. But I didn't feel sad or hurt. Seeing Anne's worried face, I gave her a reassuring smile. "I'll be fine. I lost my love for him long ago." I am mad though. I said this, but I had my worries. So with my condition, it's not like I can work. Of course I'll make sure to get alimony, but that might not be enough. Eventually, from now on, I need to focus on moving forward and do whatever I can. At the very least, I need to make sure I get the alimony, so we're not left in the lurch. I felt a renewed determination and clenched my fist. He's gotten his health back, so we should make sure we get what's due to us. I said to Anne, and she nodded in agreement. That's right. I'm not alone. I have my lovely and reliable daughter Anne with me. 3 months after Davis left, an unbelievable situation occurred. After a hospital visit, as Anne was helping me open the front door, someone jumped out from the shadows. Nellie, help me. Humley, help me. Nellie, help me. I don't know what to do now. He was almost hysterical and his words were hard to make out. He was clearly distraught. Who are you? I replied calmly. Cool. It's me, Davis. I didn't recognize him at first because of the drastic change, but his voice gave him away. I said that earlier on purpose. I opened the front door leaning on my cane. I've started to recover, so I don't need a wheelchair anymore. It's a nuisance to have him bowing down in front of my door, so I reluctantly let him get into the house. Next, in the living room, and I confronted Davis and began questioning him. What are you doing here? Rubbing his forehead on the table, Davis began to speak. Please, I was wrong. I want us to get back together. Seriously? You have some nerve showing up now. Anne spoke before I could. I feel the same way she does. He left me so easily just because I got better. And after saying he didn't want to take care of me, now this? Please, just leave. Anne, seemingly unable to hold back, grabbed Davis's arm to throw him out, but when he started to stand up, he suddenly clutched his stomach and fell to the ground. No matter how much I say, I don't care about Davis. I can't just ignore someone in pain. I asked Anne to get the car, and we took him to his regular hospital. In the car, he was sweating profusely and groaning, clutching his belly. Once we arrived at the hospital, I called for a nurse, and they took him to the treatment room. As I waited in the lobby, a nurse called me into the treatment room. The doctor in charge of Davis was there and explained his condition. Ma'am, you just arrived, correct? From the doctor's tone, it seemed he didn't know about my relationship with Davis. There's no point discussing it now, so I decided to just listen to the doctor's explanation. So, what's his condition? The doctor began to speak in a grave tone. We informed him last time. The transplanted liver is being rejected. He needs to be hospitalized immediately. Anne chuckled behind me. It's karma. I cleared my throat to reprimand her for her inappropriate comment, yet I couldn't help but agree. The doctor pretended not to hear and continued, we need to change his immunosuppressants to a stronger one. This medication will strain his kidneys. His kidney function isn't good right now, so he'll need dialysis. I replied immediately, all right, thank you. The doctor looked taken aback by my swift response. Starting dialysis means he'll be bedridden at the hospital for about 4 hours 3 times a week. Once you start, you're on it for life, which will undoubtedly disrupt his life. Ordinarily, one wouldn't be able to make such a quick decision, but I don't have any involvement in Davis's life anymore. It's none of my business what happens to him. The doctor began to explain the possibility of another transplant. That's when it clicked why Davis came to see me. He probably hoped for a kidney donation. It's way too opportunistic to ask for help now that his condition is deteriorating. Let him suffer from the complications of his liver condition and be on dialysis for the rest of his life. When Anne wasn't home, Davis came by again. This time, he probably rang the doorbell. He looked so gaunt that the word emaciated didn't do justice. He seemed like he could collapse at any moment, his face pale and lifeless. I had an idea of why he came, but I let him in nonetheless. He must have sneaked out of the hospital. Then, without any prompting, Davis started talking about a woman he's involved with. She's a coworker, 24 years old, and she's 3 months pregnant. Turns out she got pregnant right after Davis left me. I thought I had no feelings left for him, but the way he tried to gain sympathy made me feel creeped out by him. I've decided to go through with the divorce, but I have my own life, so I'll need $30,000 in alimony. I said firmly, it's a bit above average, but considering my health issues, it's not an unreasonable amount. How the hell am I supposed to pay that? He got mad, his face turning red. I continued unfazed. Sure, if your new woman works at the same company, she knew you were married. I'll sue her for alimony too. Hey, enough of this nonsense. Do you even know who she is? There's no way I know anything about the other person. She's the CEO's daughter, and she thinks I've been divorced for years. Act to lie about being divorced, just to woo a woman. Davis's selfishness left me speechless. That's your own problem. You did what you did. If you don't pay, I'll inform the company and garnish both our salaries. I told him in a stern tone. Please don't do that. If the boss finds out about the affair, it'll be a huge mess. X of freezing inwardly? I thought, isn't it already a mess? Grin at him sharply. I saw him turn pale as he hesitated to speak. Okay, I'll find a way to pay. Just don't tell the company. If you do, she'll find out I'm married. It'd be terrible for her if people knew we were married after an affair. Sympathy for his mistress? What about me then? Davis suddenly looked startled and dejected. Perhaps he realized my fierce expression in his vulnerable position. Anyway, I'll arrange the money soon. Just keep it quiet at the company. I continued to glare at Davis. Please, keep this quiet. Davis explained he'd borrowed the $30,000 in damages from his parents and get the money for his mistress's compensation from a loan agency. It doesn't matter where he gets the money from as long as it doesn't inconvenience me. I made sure he understood he has to deposit it properly. I got them to agree that the divorce papers would be filed after the alimony was transferred, and we signed that agreement. Davis left with his tail between his legs. I'm pretty sure Davis came over to discuss a kidney transplant, but I didn't let that conversation happen. I managed to focus solely on the compensation, using his weakness to my advantage. Thankfully, Anne wasn't home. I didn't want her to witness such a chaotic scene. Legally, I am still Davis's wife, so I went to his hospital and signed all the consent forms for his treatment like dialysis. I decided to briefly visit his room and check on him. I saw Davis and a young woman talking face-to-face in the chat room. She seemed pretty angry. Their loud voices echoed outside. I thought you were completely cured. What's with this hospitalization? Looks like she's the mistress. Davis said in a soft voice. I don't want to deal with an old man in the hospital when I'm having a baby. Quite a sharp-tongued lady. Is she really the boss's daughter? Anne was staring intently at the woman. I'm having a baby. I think I might know her. The woman was shouting at Davis. There's no way I'm doing any caregiving. Davis was shrinking back, seemingly overwhelmed. He didn't retort at all. Anne, what's this about damages? Anne looked at me grinning. I couldn't resist and ended up sending a letter to the company's boss about the affair, so that's why the mistress came storming in. This feels like marital fraud. Lying about being healthy. I feel like I should be the one getting compensated. I couldn't help but chuckle. Well, Anne's letter might have been a bit over the top. Davis got what was coming to him. A young doctor passing by started talking to Anne. Is the man in the chat room your father? He seemed strangely familiar. Anne smiled as she replied, that might be someone else. I found their interaction amusing. After the doctor left, I looked over and saw Anne with a delighted expression on her face. She caught my gaze and seemed a bit embarrassed. A nurse informed me of piled-up laundry after the doctor left. I replied with a smile, got it, and left. I wondered if Davis had anyone to take care of him during his hospital stay. On her way out, Anne mentioned she might... I know the mistress. I think she was a senior from my high school. Apparently, she was 2 years ahead of Anne in school and dropped out during her senior year. I think she dropped out because she got pregnant. Anne muttered, maybe the child she's carrying isn't my father's. Anne also mentioned that the senior was involved in some shady deals back in the day. I had a hunch that the child's father might be someone else. I can't pinpoint why, but it's just a gut feeling. Using a woman's intuition. I guess. After a while, the compensation was paid by Davis's parents. Surprisingly, they didn't wire the money but brought it in person. With tears in their eyes and hands on the ground in an apologetic gesture. They said, we're so sorry for all the trouble our son has caused after all you've done for him. They expressed their intention to pay the compensation for me, but also mentioned they no longer want any involvement with their son Davis. Apparently, Davis got on the wrong side of his boss and was fired on the spot. Though he received severance pay, it was taken by his affair partner under the pretext of compensation, and he seems to have gone Maya afterward. His mother with tears relayed this to me. Davis remains hospitalized. Given his worsening kidney condition and the need for dialysis, there seems little hope of his discharge. The compensation was also wired by the CEO of the company where Davis worked, probably out of shame for his daughter's misdeeds, though it might be hush money. The divorce tumult has finally settled. Peaceful days have returned to me after a long time. My lung cancer treatment went well, and just the other day, the doctor informed me I am in remission. From now on, I just need routine checkups. Anna's at work now. I'm alone at home. I looked around the empty house. This house originally belonged to my relatives. I renovated it and transferred it into my name. The renovation was funded by my savings before I got married. This house is mine. So even after the divorce, I don't have to worry about a place to stay. As for Anne, I was told she's dating the young doctor from the other day. They grew close during her frequent visits to the hospital and him offering advice. He's a friendly and gentle-smiled doctor. She's planning to bring him home soon. I hope Anne doesn't make the mistakes I did, but I trust that doctor. Despite my illness, I lost many things. My marriage ended in failure, but there's still so much life ahead. The CEO of the company where Davis worked has introduced a job to me, probably as a way of making amends. It's an office job at a local construction company. They offered me the position considering my past experience in construction. Working from home is also an option, so I accepted. The steady income greatly eases my future living concerns. I'll be happier from now on, rather than regretting the past. I'm eager to live positively. I was called by the nurse at the gynecologist's office where I regularly go. I know, Millie, I really don't want to say this. She seemed hesitant but then braced herself and told me, "You'd be better off divorcing your husband." I was shocked, but even more shocked by the reason the nurse gave. This became the start of a whirlwind story for my family. Lily Davis, pseudonym, 26 years old, company employee, shared her experience. "My name is Lily Davis, a 26-year-old employee. I got married to Hans 3 years ago, and we've been living a blissful married life. He's such a kind man, always caring about my parents too. My parents absolutely adored Hans and quickly gave their blessing for our marriage. Although we generally have a good relationship with family, there's one person I've always struggled with, my sister, Alma. She's incredibly selfish. If she's happy, that's all that matters to her. And because of her, I've lost boyfriends in the past. Mama's always strict with Alma, but Dad, well, he spoiled her rotten. That only amplified her selfishness. I was adamant about not letting Alma take Hans away from me, so we announced our marriage when she wasn't around. I made sure Hans and Alma had little to no contact, but I could have never imagined what would happen next. But one day, I suddenly felt unwell at work and fainted. I was rushed to the hospital, and after some tests, a revelation came to light. "Lily, are you okay?" Even though he was at work, Hans was deeply concerned and came rushing to the hospital. "Hans, I found out. I'm pregnant." At my announcement, Hans embraced me warmly. "All right, we're finally going to have a baby. This is great." Then, Hans made a suggestion. "Yeah, we should tell your parents about the pregnancy. I'll come with you." Of course, I agreed. Later, when I felt better, we went to tell my parents the big news. "Lily, congratulations. So we're gonna be grandparents, huh?" Then my mom asked. "So, Lily, have you decided where you're going to have the baby?" I replied, "Honestly, actually, I haven't decided yet." Mom suggested, "Why not go to the maternity clinic where my friend works? I went there when I was pregnant with you." "Okay, I'll go there." I accepted her recommendation. I agreed with my mom's proposal. I thought our life was about to get even better from here on. But then, I overheard it. I had no idea that someone was listening in on our conversation. At this time, I'd not imagined it at all. The next day, I began visiting the maternity clinic that my mother had recommended. Everyone there was incredibly kind, and I was deeply grateful to my mom. But a few weeks later, something unexpected happened. Hans and I were at the hospital for a regular checkup when suddenly, "Lily Davis, can you come to the consultation room?" I was called in alone. Wondering why, when I saw the nurse who came for me, I understood. "Lily, long time no see." It was Julia Smith, my mom's friend since middle school. "It's been a while." I greeted her with a smile. It seemed like Julia had come especially to congratulate me. "I just wanted to say congratulations on your pregnancy. Lily, I've been working night shifts lately, so I haven't had a chance to see you." "Sorry about that." I responded with a smile. "No worries at all. Mom mentioned that she had you assist with her delivery, which is why I chose this clinic." "Really? Please send my regards to Rosa later." After a little chit-chat, Julia asked me a question. "By the way, is your husband with you today?" I was taken aback by the sudden question, but I answered properly, "Yes. He's always with me for checkups. I'm really grateful for that." Then, Julia's tone suddenly changed, and she whispered to me. She hesitated, but then gathering courage, she told me, "You should divorce your husband soon." I was filled with questions. I didn't understand what she meant, but what Julia said next left me in shock. "Actually, I saw Alma with your husband after my night shift. At first, I thought they were just dating, I overheard Elma say, I wish Lily's baby would miscarry. Don't you think so, Hans? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Hans was with Elma, and Elma wished for my child's miscarriage. Still, I wasn't convinced. Full of doubts, I turned to Hans. How was it? His question startled me. It's fine. No, it can't be. Hans, who always cared for me, wouldn't cheat with Elma, right? With these thoughts, we headed home. But if Julia's words were true, what should I do? Adam, please. I went to my mom for advice. I told her everything Julia had said at the hospital. After some thought, my mom said, I understand your trust in Hans, thinking he wouldn't cheat with Elma. But I also don't think Julia would lie. Yeah, and I've had boyfriends stolen by Elma before. I tried to keep Hans away from her. Seeing my distress, my mom suggested, why don't we hire a private investigator? It's the only way to know. If I kept doubting, it might affect our marriage. I wanted to trust Hans, so I asked my mom to hire the investigator. A few days later, the results came in. No way. Everything turned white in my mind. The results were devastating. There was a lot of evidence of Elma and Hans having an affair. And there were voice recordings too. I can't believe Elma was there during the pregnancy announcement. Yeah, she was. But I'm glad since Lily got pregnant, I didn't have to pay attention to her. Thanks for approaching me. I told you. Hans, I wish Lily's baby would miscarry. Well, Lily is so naive, trusting me like that. I can just tell her I'm busy with work or some other excuse. But who would have thought that Hans, whom Lily trusted, would love me? Poor Lily, really. Hey, you approached me first, remember? Elma? I didn't want to hear anymore and stopped the recording. I cried in front of my mom. It can't be true. Elma was there during the pregnancy announcement. My mom then said, actually, Hans came over a few times when you weren't around. Maybe that's when Elma approached him. I shouldn't have stopped it. I'm sorry. She apologized, but she was not the cause this time. I knew the real culprits were Hans and Elma. I felt I should punish them both. I'm superior formations, I'm frustrated. I want to give them what they deserve. Upon hearing this, my mom said, I understand. But remember, I'm on your side. I tried to teach Elma right, but she never grew up. So, I have a plan. She then revealed a shocking truth and strategy. During this, I realized that besides Hans and Lily, there was another person who deserved punishment. Acts on the day of the plan, I headed to my parents' place with Hans. We had told Hans and Elma that we were throwing a baby celebration party. Now, I didn't know Lily had a sister. I should greet her properly. But inside, I thought of him as a liar as we approached my parents' house. Soon, they would both get what they deserved. Upon arriving, Hans turned pale. Ella seemed in a bad mood, and my mom looked stern. My father seemed panicked. I cut straight to the chase. Hans, we're getting a divorce. He looked confused and agitated. Hold on. What are you talking about? I replied calmly. Hans, of all people, you had an affair with my sister. However, he denied it. I've never met Lily's sister. I presented all the evidence I had gathered from a private investigator in front of Hans. Come on, you're joking, right? He turned pale. Do you think I joke with evidence like this? Of course. I didn't stop there. I played all the conversations between Hans and Elma for him to hear. I can't believe you'd think it's okay if I had a miscarriage with our baby. That's not what. It was Elma who said that. Hence, Elma entered the conversation with a sour look. If Lily had paid more attention to Hans, this wouldn't have happened. Instead of fussing over the baby, she should have looked after him too. Elma. My mother scolded her, but she didn't stop there. It's not fair. Lily gets to be married and happy. Oh man approaches me, and yet a good-looking guy like Hans goes to Lily. It's just not right. I was irritated, but I coldly said to Alma, maybe you'd be more popular if you weren't always switching men. It's your own fault. Shut up. She was angry at my words, but I wasn't scared at all and continued coldly. I'm divorcing Hans. Do whatever you want after that, but make sure you pay for the affair. Alma smirked at this. That's fine. Hans will pay the compensation. Don't worry. I brought Elma back to reality with the truth. Don't count on Hans for that. We work at the same place, but I earn more. Plus, this affair will definitely get out, and Hans might lose his job. He'll be too busy with his own compensation. Suddenly, Alma, who had been so smug, looked panicked. No way. Hans, is it true you can't pay for both of us? Hans, looking guilty, apologized to Elma. Sorry, I don't have much savings. Then, Mom and Dad, she turned to our parents, pleadingly. Pleadingly, please lend me some money. I don't mind, my father quietly said, but my mother, glaring at him, retorted. Why are you always so soft on Elma? Well, I feel sorry for her. My mother responded sharply. She's an adult. She has to take responsibility. But before my father could continue, my mother did. Is it because you did something similar and you want to protect her? In your case, it was worse having a child with the woman you had an affair with. Unseated, Elma snapped at this. Hold on. Am I not your daughter? My mother took a moment to retrieve something from the living room. And when she returned, she showed it to Elma. It was an expert opinion as to whether the mother and Elma were parent and child. Elma was in shock reading the results. Parental relation. 0 out. Facing her astonishment, my mother laid out the truth. You are the result of an affair your father had years ago. The woman ran off as soon as the relationship was exposed. I wanted to divorce him, but I didn't think it was fair to you. I thought I could raise you well, even if you weren't my biological child. Upon hearing this, I was stunned. It made sense why we looked so different and had opposing personalities. But at the same time, it was clear where her poor choice in men came from. Just goes to show, like father, like daughter. Then my mother turned to Elma. I'm divorcing your father. Panicking, my father said, Hold on. Please don't divorce me. We've been together for so long. I stayed for the kids. I thought they deserved a father. There hasn't been love between us for years. Lily and Elma are adults now. Why should we stay together? I don't want anything, just a divorce. My mother coldly concluded. Elma, desperate, clung to my father. Vince, Dad, please do something about the compensation. But my father said to Elma, I've given all I could for your college fees. So, I don't have any more money. But I used that money to hang out, pushing Elma and my father. I was just flabbergasted. Then I said to Hans, you'll have to pay the damages for Elma as well. Hearing that, Elma and Hans apologized to me. Lily, I'm so sorry. It was a momentary lapse in judgment. Please forgive me. Lily, I messed up too. Facing their superficial apologies, I finally snapped. Enough is enough. This is all your fault. I can't forgive you both for making such hurtful comments about my child. My outburst made them both gasp in fear. The Maxwellites. If Alma has learned anything from her mistakes, she'd better stay away from me from now on. Hans, get the divorce papers ready. If you make a fuss, we'll go to court. Both of them were crying, but I pretended not to notice. My mother also added, Dear, I'm filing for divorce. If you have anything to say, let's talk through our lawyers. She then looked at me and said, Lily, I'm sorry for everything. I should have told you sooner. It's okay. Thanks to you. I also considered divorce. I need to thank Julia later. With that, my mother and I left the house. And so, my family was torn apart. Later on, I divorced Hans and my mother divorced my father. He lost his job because his workplace found out about the whole incident. Alma, who squandered her college money on frivolous things, didn't have enough college credits and had to drop out. Elma and Hans got married and my former father ended up living with them. However, just with my father's income, they couldn't make ends meet. Hans and Elma struggled to find stable jobs. When they did, they often ended up at shady companies and were worn out. As for me, I don't care what happens to them. It's like comparing apples to oranges, you know. Peek on the brighter side for me. Rasha, Lily just gave birth safely. Really? Congratulations. Lily, thanks to my mother and Julia, I gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. Life as a single parent will be challenging, but with my mom and Julia's support, I'll rely on them. Spoiling a child with too much love isn't right. I decided to raise my daughter using Elma and the others as cautionary tales. Thank you for watching the video all the way to the end. If you resonated with the content, please leave a positive rating and a comment. I'm marrying the CEO's daughter. You're now obsolete. Spoke over the phone. Han said it with a smug tone. It's as if I could picture his malicious grin. Looks like my luck is finally turning. If I stayed with you, I'd be stuck as a regular employee forever. Now, I aim to work hard as the next CEO. He laughed as he said it. It felt like he was blaming me for his lack of promotion. He had that weak side, always blaming others when things didn't go his way. I could have forgiven him for that before, back when I still had feelings for him. Now things are different. My patience has run out. I can't forgive Hans anymore. I need to take action. I'm ready to show him My name is Mally. I just celebrated my 40th birthday a few days ago. I married Hans when I was 25, and we both worked to make ends meet. After our first son was born, I left my job. But after our second son was born, I started part-time work at a local grocery store. Getting by on Hans' income alone was quite a challenge. Our sons are proactive in their studies and sports, and I look forward to their futures. But Hans, he's always been indifferent to them. To be precise, he showed little interest in our family. For the past few years, he's barely conversed with me, only offering the most basic greetings. Scott, a younger son, has a class observation day coming up. I reminded Hans, let's go watch him together on that day. I got it. We both took the day off to attend the observation day. However, the night before, he dropped this bombshell. For things like this, it's enough if one parent shows up. I think we'll pass. What's gotten into you all of a sudden? Scott is excited, thinking both his parents would come. What's with this sudden change of heart? He calmly retorted, ignoring my glaring eyes. I've got a lot on my plate. Don't lump me in with a part-time old lady. Part-time old lady like you. Who are you calling old lady? I pretended to be jokingly angry, but deep down, I was hurt. I'm almost 40. For the 15 years we've been married, we mostly worked side by side. That might be why we grew apart and a rift developed between us. That's why I invited him to Scott's observation day. For Scott, I wanted to reconnect with Hans. Yet he replied so coldly, if you don't want to be treated like an old lady, then maybe take more care with your appearance. Being called an old lady is just fine by me. I playfully stuck my tongue out at him. After Hans left, I let out a sigh when I was alone. I looked in the mirror. A middle-aged woman with a defined waistline was reflected in the mirror. In addition to the part-time job, up until last year, I was also taking care of my mother-in-law, who had worsening dementia. Sleepless nights became the norm because she would wander around all night. Your mother sleeps during the day and is okay, but at night, she roams around non-stop. Better than being bedridden, right? My mom probably just wants to move around. Despite being his own mother, he'd go back to sleep, leaving all the challenges to me. I was the only one burdened with hardships. The strain of balancing my job and mother-in-law's care became too much as I got older, so we placed her in a nursing home. But it broke my heart. Please visit me from time to time, she said, her voice filled with uncertainty. I do my best to visit her with the boys whenever I can. But Hans, he hasn't visited her even once. I was the only one who attended Scott's class observation. Hans came home later than usual. I could tell by the smell that he had been drinking with his colleagues. Our eldest son, Aaron, was up to something, acting all secretive, at his age. I figured it's best not to pry, but I was genuinely worried. Scott started acting distant towards me as well, following his brother's lead. Both of them were getting to that challenging age. Even though I thought I shouldn't interfere, I was still concerned. I decided to confront them. All right, out with it. What are you two hiding? Well, Aaron and Scott exchanged glances. Then, seeming to accept the situation, Bryn spoke. Your birthday is coming up, right? So we decided to pool our allowances and buy a cake. Do it. I was taken aback. I glanced at the calendar. Indeed, my birthday was in 3 days. To be honest, I wasn't particularly thrilled about turning 40. Nevertheless, I was grinning. I was touched by my son's sentiments. On the day of my birthday, the boys kept their promise and bought a cake. We also tried our best to decorate the room. Bryn said proudly. Sure enough, the room was adorned, albeit a bit clumsily done. I was filled with joy until Hans came home. What's all this? As soon as he entered, he was furious. I'm tired. I just want to relax at home. And what's with all these silly decorations? But today's Mom's birthday, celebrating at her age. Pie must be nice. He scoffed and ripped off a decoration from the wall, throwing it in the trash. Hey, clean this up now and bring me a beer. Hold on, don't you see the effort they put into this? Raised my voice. This was just too much. Didn't it hurt him to see the boys so disheartened? Wait. Sure. I'm 40 now. I'm not a kid, but I was happy about our son's gesture. If they celebrated your birthday like this, the mere thought makes me sick. He exaggeratedly grimaced. After criticizing the boys for cleaning up too slowly, he continued. I don't want you guys bothering me. That's to leave me alone. The way you say that, I was downhearted. The boys, on the verge of tears, continued cleaning. Just then, Hans sprouted the cake on the table. I'll consider this a bonus for my hard work today. Wait. Both Aaron and Scott looked horrified. bit in front of us. Hans grabbed a handful of the cake and shoved it into his mouth. Scott started crying. Aaron tried to comfort him, his eyes teary. How could you? You should be on a diet anyway, not eating this kind of stuff, Hans said with a smirk. And like that, he ruined both my birthday and the boys' efforts. Despite always talking about his job, Hans didn't earn much. There were no signs of promotion, and apparently his coworkers talked behind his back, saying he wasn't competent. Whenever he drank, he'd rant about it. If it were Lily, she'd listen to me seriously. Holding a beer can, Hans said that. I was taken aback. Listening closely, it seemed Hans was close to a younger coworker named Lily, who apparently had taken a liking to him. In his drunken state, he went on and on about how great Lily was. Unlike you, she's beautiful, straightforward, and adorable. How close are you to her? I wish I could marry Lily. Then I'd leave this dump, he said, distorting his face in disgust. I was at a loss for words. Even though he was drunk, I never expected him to openly admit his affair desires. The next day, Hans looked guilty. He seemed to vaguely remember singing Lily's praises while he was intoxicated. I'm heading out. Get along with Lily, okay? I told him that. Hans glared at me in silence and left for work. By this point, I was convinced of his affair. If she was just a colleague, he'd call it by her last name. The fact that he casually calls her Lily suggests something more. How is it? I couldn't easily decide on a divorce. What would our sons think? I suddenly recalled the ruined birthday party from the other day. Since then, our sons have been avoiding Hans. He was always indifferent to family matters anyway, so there was always a distance between him and the boys. But after this incident, they had completely shut him out. Still, Hans is their father. Could I just easily cut ties with him? I was torn and soon. I realized their worries were for nothing. I was on my way home from my part-time job. Hans called. He got straight to the point. I'm marrying the boss's daughter. You're of no use to me anymore. I couldn't grasp the situation for a moment. My mind went blank. How sudden, absurd. Yet he spoke as if it were an undeniable fact. Finally, things are looking up for me. If I stayed with you, I'd always be stuck in the same position. But now, I'm gonna work hard as the next CEO. Lily is the CEO's daughter? I was taken aback once again. It was clear that he was having an affair with Lily, but I had no idea she was of such high standing. No offense, but Hans was just an average-looking guy approaching middle age with an average income. It didn't seem like he'd be a match for a CEO's daughter. Lily. Though yay. You've been so smitten with Lily lately, haven't you? Oh right, there was Lily. His response was strange, as if suggesting there might be other women too. Ex-people, anyway. I want us to break up. Melly. Alright then, goodbye. Surprisingly, I easily agreed to end things. It wasn't about letting him have his way, but quite the opposite. I won't forgive Hans. And as the first step, I distanced myself from him. I hoped our sons would understand. Hans came home with divorce papers in hand. I signed my name without hesitation. When it came to custody, he pushed the responsibility of our sons onto me. I wasn't surprised. I kind of expected it. When I explained the situation to our sons, their response was, figures? Dad never really cared about us, did he? Don't lose hope. I'm here for you. We should be the ones saying that. Aaron spoke with concern. Mom, don't be sad about separating from Dad. You have me and Scott? That's right, Mom. Both of you. Thank you. I was moved to tears by their words. A month had passed since my divorce from Hans. My life hadn't changed much. I'd send the boys to school and do house chores. Then, on my way home from my part-time job, I got another call from Hans. His voice was sheer panic. Help me? Lily. Lily is. What happened? I listened leisurely. Today, Aaron is making curry, and I'm excited to taste it. Can't wait to get home. Lily came to my house, and my wife found out about my affair. That's rough. I nodded in my laid-back manner. Truth be told, I had a feeling this was coming. Grace about Hans's behavior. Aaron and I decided to follow him. Turns out, the woman he wanted to marry wasn't Lily. Lily was just a coworker, a regular girl from a typical family. But because she was young and beautiful, Hans apparently got tempted. His actual love interest, the CEO's daughter, was in her late 30s and not particularly pretty. How did Lily find out? I told her, passionately. I said, what? I told Lily the truth, even showed her the pictures. Hans was getting louder. Why would you do that? My wife is furious. I've been kicked out of the house. Out of the house and fired? Well, you shouldn't have deceived that CEO's daughter in the first place. Though he sounded like the victim, he was the one causing all the trouble. I sighed. How long you been lying to Lily and your current wife? Shut up. It's none of your business. Well, it isn't anymore. I chuckled, thinking about their inevitable divorce. Even when we were married, you cheated. What do you think of me and our kids? You and the kids were just in the way. Mary marrying you was a mistake. What's wrong with trying to fix a mistake? He speaks like a spoiled brat. He's just a big kid at heart. He never admits his mistakes. But whether he admits them or not, others won't let him off the hook. I've lost my job and my home. I don't know where to work next. My wife talked to her father, the CEO, and he's pressuring other companies not to hire me. And how is that my problem? I told him off as he looked stunned. Hans is stunned. But I'm not your wife anymore. We should each handle our own problems. And with that, I hung up. He tried calling several times, but I ignored him. Instead, though he contacted me, Hans came to my place, asking to start over. That's some nerve he's got. I was completely taken aback. I bet Lily had a similar expression on her face. Of course. I turned him down, told him never to come back. But for you, I agreed wholeheartedly. After venting her frustrations about Hans, Lily's voice turned fragile. I didn't know Hans was married. I know. We were all deceived by him. There was no reason for us to dislike each other. We were all victims of Hans. I'm sorry. It's okay. Don't worry about it. I ended the call with a wry smile. Hans's current wife called me too. She emotionally talked about her plans to divorce Hans and her frustration about being deceived. It's from a strong voice. I saw it. Hans sure picked a tough one to deceive. I got a call that my mother-in-law wasn't feeling well and headed to the nursing home. The staff looked troubled. We tried contacting her son, but he just told us to handle it here. So you called me? Yes, I'm aware that you've divorced him. However, we don't have anyone else to discuss this matter with. Okay. Even though I split from Hans, I couldn't come to dislike my mother-in-law. So before her dementia set in, she was a strong-willed woman who taught me how to cook. My sons were also very fond of her. I'm coming in. As I entered the room, I heard a soft groan. As from the bed in the corner, mother-in-law was trying to sit up. Please don't strain yourself. Emily, didn't you break up with my son? Her voice was filled with anxiety. I nodded and moved closer to her bed. Yes, but you're still the grandmother to my kids. Plus, the facility informed me that you've fallen ill. It's just a cold and I'm already feeling better. But right after saying that, mother-in-law coughed lightly, according to the staff. Hans had been reluctant to pay for the facility. And couldn't even afford to take mother-in-law to the hospital. I'll pay for it. Let's get you to the hospital. But please get well soon and play with the boys again. I said with a smile. Mother-in-law seemed taken aback by my words. All right. After confirming mother-in-law's agreement, I stepped out of the room to discuss things with the staff. Days later, I visited mother-in-law again, and surprisingly, Hans was there too. Unfortunately, the conversation was troubling. Mom, can you lend me some money? Why do you only show up when you're in trouble? Don't be mad. Hans continued in a soft voice, not noticing me by the door. You've Dad's inheritance, right? Just give it to me. Don't be ridiculous. Mother-in-law spoke sharply. Her anger was overpowering her ailment, and she seemed lucid. I'll use the money for the grandchildren. They'll need it for college, and also for kind-hearted Mally. She's a stranger now. Even as a stranger, she's kinder than you. Mother-in-law stated firmly. I'll leave the inheritance to the grandchildren, not a single cent for you. Hush, Mom. Kents pleaded, but to no avail. Mother-in-law smiled when she noticed me. Please take care of the kids. Melly? Yes, I nodded solemnly. Hans persisted, but sensing the atmosphere, he was escorted out by the staff. Later on, I found out that mother-in-law consulted a lawyer through the facility before her condition worsened. Despite Nancy's relentless visits, mother-in-law's decision remained unchanged. After school, my son Scott came home distressed. Dad showed up at school. Out of the blue, he said he wanted to live together. You've got to be kidding, considering Hans' past indifference. It's hard to believe he's suddenly lonely. Heavens and Judea over. Scott is set to inherit mother-in-law's assets. The likely. Hans wanted to take Scott back for the inheritance. Are you all right? Aren't you bait? I ran away. It's so strange for Dad to want to live with me. Scott doesn't know he's been chosen as the heir to the inheritance. Still, he seemed to find it odd that his dad came to pick him up. He might go to errands too. You're right. I quickly prepared to pick up Aaron. Stay home. Scott, don't open the door for anyone. Got it. I left Scott at home and sped off on my bike. I found Aaron on his way home from school, confronted by Hans. The expressions on both their faces were stern. Go away. I don't want anything to do with you anymore. Don't say that, okay? Hans reached out to Aaron. Aaron turned and ran. Okay, stop. Howie, there's a strange man here. Run. Turns out Aaron was referring to his biological father as the strange man. Well, it's not surprising. The way Hans had treated him over the years was directly reflected in Aaron's actions and words. Aaron noticed me. He clung to my arm and said, get rid of that man for me. Hans, enough is enough. I stood between Aaron and Hans, shielding Aaron. Hans, gritting his teeth, glared at us. This is none of your business. Let me talk to Aaron. Aaron is my son. I've been the one to raise him from birth. Hans never even held baby Aaron. Weekends were wasted on Hans's outings, while I was left taking care of our child. And now he wants to talk about what? Probably trying to convince him to renounce his inheritance so Hans could get the money. Aaron, get some help. Got it. Nodding. Aaron ran off. As Hans tried to follow, I warned him, if you keep involving yourself with my family, I'll call the police. You've got to be kidding. He was red in the face, furious. You ruined my future. Then you brought it on yourself. The outcome of him lying to 3 different women, including me, was the current state of Hans. But he couldn't see it. Unable to accept his faults, he remained immature and petulant. Soon Aaron returned with a few men. Suddenly Hans's bravado faded. He tried to escape but was surrounded by the men. Soon after, he was taken to the police station. Hans was deemed a stalker and prohibited from approaching or interfering with us. Just to be safe, my son's school arranged for a teacher to drive them home. I apologize for my ex-husband causing trouble. No worries. The kids are the ones who have it hard, the teacher said kindly. Then and now, Hans would call, but no one in the family answered. With the community's help, we managed to keep him out of our daily lives. At fancies, on a day off, my sons and I visited my mother-in-law. Though she was dozing off, she smiled when Scott approached. It's good to see you, Scott, and you too. Aaron, it's been a while. Grandma. Aaron laughs and starts talking to mother-in-law. According to the staff, mother-in-law's condition was gradually worsening. Eventually, she might forget about us. I hope she can make as many memories as possible with the boys until then. After spending some time with mother-in-law, it was time to leave. Walking down the corridor of the facility, the boy seemed restless. Mom, can we talk? What is it? Scott hesitated, then took my hand. But on the other side, Aaron grabbed my other hand. Hey, that's not fair. Scott, you two, what's going on? I felt a tickling sensation. And come to think of it, when the boys were little, we often walked like this, holding hands as a trio. It's nice once in a while, isn't it? Sure is. Chuckling with my sons, we began to walk. Looking back, it's been quite the journey. From housework, raising kids, and later on caregiving too, adding a part-time job to that mix for 15 years. The ending was a bit bitter. Hans betrayed me and left. But still, I can smile. Because I have my sons. I'm not alone. We've nurtured this bond that allows us to share these laughs. I'll cherish this bond forever. And with that, I made a silent promise, smiling. Thank you for watching the video all the way to the end. If you resonated with the content, please leave a positive rating and a comment. My husband never loved me from the start. When I discovered his true nature and what I thought was a happy marriage, I began to act for revenge. But I never imagined that she would join in on the revenge play against my husband. No matter the age, life can be restarted. I'm now living, looking straight ahead. I am Mally, 30 years old. I live with my husband, Carl, in our 3rd year of marriage with no children. We met at a singles event. I fell for him at first sight because he was tall, handsome, and kind, and we got married just like that. Life was very enjoyable at the beginning of our marriage. We cooked together, had some drinks, and watched movies. We were in love. However, he became busier and came home later, and the days passed by one another. He doesn't have weekends off due to his job, and as I have a clerical job with weekends off, our days off didn't align. About 6 months into our marriage, I wanted children and consulted with him, and we somehow tried, but we were not blessed with children. Eventually, even our sleeping times didn't match, and now we don't talk about having children at all. Of course, I want children, but I wasn't in a rush. I also work, and I thought it was a time for both of us to focus on our careers. Despite our conflicting schedules, I made lunchboxes for him every day. The only time we could talk a bit was about 30 minutes in the morning, and while making the lunchbox, I kept talking to him, who looked sleepy about my work friends and parents. Recently, I wasn't sure if he was listening or not, but I was happy just to have a conversation with him. And then I handed him the lunchbox and hugged him at the front door, wrapped in his arms. It was a moment when I felt I should work hard every day. However, one day, he said, "I don't need a lunchbox anymore." "Why?" they asked. "Lately, I've been going out more, and it's easier to eat out." He was originally working in-house at a home building company, but had recently moved to sales and was very busy with meetings with clients. "I see, understood. Then give me lunch money instead." We both work, so we split the living expenses. My husband is stingy. He changes when it comes to money. Before we got married, we always split the bill on dates, and when he took me to a burger shop on my birthday and made me pay for my own meal, I was quite turned off. However, I was also relieved that he was frugal. It was his idea to have lunchboxes to save on lunch money. Having grown up in a wealthy family, I was indifferent to money, and his stinginess seemed refreshing, and I couldn't dislike it. Since then, I stopped making lunchboxes, but continued the goodbye hugs. I hugged him that day as well. However, he quickly pulled away from me. At the same time, I faintly smelled perfume. He never wears perfume normally. It was just a slight sweet citrus scent, and he just said, "I'm leaving," without making eye contact and left. I felt a bit anxious. I had lunch with my high school friend after a long time, and she has 2 boys, 6 and 4 years old. When you have kids, the husband becomes secondary, and we argue every day. You guys must be in love since it's just the 2 of you. I wish I could go back, but not at all. He's been coming home late lately, and we hardly talk. Even today, he seemed to dislike even a hug. "Really? Is your husband cheating?" I froze at Anne's joke. I'd never suspected him of cheating. But today was different. I became anxious and consulted Anne. He suddenly said he didn't need a lunchbox. He suddenly started wearing perfume. He's become cold. Anne leaned forward and began to talk excitedly. "That's too suspicious. When my husband cheated, he suddenly started caring about his appearance too. When I confronted him based on my woman's intuition, it turned out to be true. Well, I did forgive him once." Anne's husband seems to be a habitual cheater, but she doesn't divorce him because they have children. I learned various ways to investigate infidelity from a man. Women's intuition is usually right, but men can be careless. You might want to check it out. I still didn't want to, and couldn't believe my husband could cheat. When my husband came home late that night, he immediately went to take a bath. I stealthily entered the dressing room and took my husband's cell phone. My hand was trembling a bit. The passcode should be our wedding anniversary. However, it didn't unlock. I panicked and tried several codes, but all were incorrect. At that moment, a messenger message appeared. For a moment, I saw a message saying the food was delicious today. He was supposed to be working today. I pretended to be calm and waited for my husband to come out of the bath. When I asked him what he wanted to do for dinner, he said, "I had dinner with a senior colleague." When I asked, "Who's the colleague?" he replied with a rice mother-in-law. "Mr. Smith, he even came to our wedding." Mr. Smith is a male senior colleague, a few years older than my husband. "Oh, really?" When I responded indifferently, he said, "What is it?" "You look like you want to say something," and suddenly became angry. "There's nothing," I replied. "I just found it unusual for you, a savor, to eat out at night." "I can have such days too," he replied. He seemed to have had a bit of alcohol and was feeling bold. "Ah, I hadn't had food outside in a while. It's really tasty. Your food isn't bad, but it lacks something." "You've maids at your parents' place, right? Mally, that's why you don't know the taste of home cooking, do you?" It's true. We had maids in my parents' home who cooked 3 meals a day for us. Maybe he's not pleased that my parents are wealthy. He often makes sarcastic remarks about me, not wanting to start a fight. I didn't respond and went to the bedroom. He fell asleep on the sofa. When I confirmed he was asleep, I got out of bed. The methods of infidelity investigation and told me included checking messenger messages, screenshotting evidence emails, and checking card statements and receipts. I pulled out a receipt from his wallet. It was from a famous Italian restaurant. The 2-course meals. He wouldn't go to such a fancy restaurant with just a senior colleague. And the stingy husband is treating a woman at a restaurant. He always split the bill with me. My heart shifted to conviction. However, I didn't read the messenger messages, and I still don't have definitive proof. He is cheating. Even though I thought it had nothing to do with me being in this situation, I was surprisingly calm. Of course, I felt frustrated, but I decided to talk to him after collecting solid evidence. And the chance came soon. A few days later, while having breakfast together, my husband reported, "I have an overnight business trip next weekend. It's rare for you to stay overnight. I have a new client in Yonkers. I'm visiting a few places, so I have to stay overnight." "I see. Take care. So don't use the car on the weekend." "I am driving my car to the company." They understood. "Ah, and did you fill the gas the last time you used the car?" "Gas is expensive now. Please refill it." I continued eating my breakfast without changing my expression. Am I just his ATM? After seeing my husband off, I immediately contacted Anne. When I told her about his business trip, she exclaimed over the phone, he must be traveling with his mistress. "Millie, check the car immediately when he comes back from the trip. The car navigation too." Then my husband cheerfully left for his affair trip disguised as a business trip, and came back on Sunday night, even buying me souvenirs. I checked the car immediately, making sure my husband didn't see me. And there it was, undeniable proof of infidelity. Just as Anne said, men really are careless. It's a blanket with the scent of a woman's perfume from the passenger seat, a coffee cup with lipstick on it, receipts from an aquarium and restaurants for two. The navigation history revealed several dating spots in the luxurious resorts of Spain, including the resort itself. I saved what could be used as evidence and was considering when to talk to my husband about it. However, I still loved him at this time. I thought I was his wife, and the other woman was just a flake. That is, until I overheard him on the phone with his mistress. I woke up in the middle of the night, needing to use the bathroom. I looked next to me, and he wasn't there. He was whispering on the phone with someone downstairs. I quietly left the room and listened. He seemed to be talking to his mistress. Yes, take care of yourself. Having a child with you feels like a dream." "It's alright. I'll talk to my wife. She'll surely leave me if you're having my child." I couldn't believe my ears. "A child?" And their conversation continued. I prepared alimony for my wife. Read about the money? The land and the house we live in. My wife's parents helped us financially. It should be marital property. So, I have the right to half of this property. The alimony I'll give to my wife is nothing compared to this property. Just show a bit of sincerity with the alimony and there'll be no problem. Her family is rich. She won't have any financial problems even if we split. In the darkness, my husband seemed like a completely different person. Her family is really rich. I married her, blinded by the money. The only one I truly love is you. I dove back into the bed feeling a chill. I was shivering and no tears came out. His mistress is pregnant. My husband is choosing her over me. What was our married life until today? He married me because my family is wealthy. Was all the affection he showed me a lie? It confused. I couldn't sleep at all that day. And the next day, my husband said he had something to talk about. We sat on the sofa and started talking slowly. "I got my mistress pregnant. Let's get a divorce." That's the first thing he said. He apparently met his mistress accidentally at a bar near his office. He became friends with a waitress there and had a relationship with her. "I'll pay alimony. Do you really want to divorce me that badly? But give me some time, please." I hoped that the conversation between my husband and his mistress last night was just a bad dream. But hearing it in reality from my husband's mouth, I felt the truth of it for the first time. I ran out of the house and called Anne, concerned about my crying, and rushed over immediately. "It's actual unbelievable. He married you for your family's wealth." And was fuming and looked like she would go and confront my husband any moment. My father owns a real estate company, and we had multiple properties and houses. The house we were living in was also given to us as a wedding gift by my father. I had lived a prudent life, never flaunting my family's wealth, and I wasn't interested in money. I didn't mind that my husband's family wasn't wealthy, but he was different. He was only interested in money, and thinking about it made me cry again. I understand it's painful, but if we do as he says, we'll just be playing into his hands. To discuss again, we went to a nearby cafe. I told my husband that I wanted to meet his mistress as a condition for the divorce. At first he hesitated, but he agreed, hoping to finalize the divorce soon. When we arrived at the cafe, my husband and his mistress were already there. She was tall, beautiful, slender. Just his type. My husband, looking apologetic, introduced me to the woman he had an affair with. "This is Rosa. Nice to meet you." Rosa, the other woman, gave me a slight nod and greeting. "I am truly sorry for everything." She apologized sincerely. My husband was looking uncomfortable. "I've heard. You're pregnant?" "Yes, it's been 4 months. Rosa came here even though she's not feeling well. I'll properly pay the alimony. I feel really sorry for you, but I really do love Rosa. I want to live my life with her and the child she's carrying." My husband gazes at Rosa with a kind, caring expression, being considerate of her condition. Even though I'm his wife, I wanted to get a good look, just once, at the woman he had an affair with. I wanted to scold them, but I just felt miserable seeing them together. I will pay the alimony, but I want a fair division of the house and land. I was furious. The man before me wasn't the husband I knew. "I can't do that," I responded firmly. "Why not? The house and land are in your name. Then, I have rights too." "So you are indeed after the money? Too bad. I've transferred the title to my father. It's no longer a shared property. I had already consulted with Anne and had the names on the house and land changed to my father's first. If it's in the name of a parent, it's not shared property with me, so he has no claim to any of it in the event of a divorce." "What? I overheard your phone conversation. Having an affair and then aiming for the property too. How despicable can you be? I will rightfully receive the compensation money, so be prepared." "Actuals, what a woman. I shouldn't have married a woman like you. Acting all high and mighty because you're from a wealthy family. I will pay you a dime." All the cafe customers turned to look at us. My husband stood up and raised his voice at me. "I never loved you. I just wanted to get rich and prove myself. I used you for that. So it was like that after all. He never loved me, not even a bit. I knew it, but it hit me then, and I felt drained." Suddenly, Rosa burst into laughter. "You really haven't changed." That's what Rosa said to my husband. "Us always about money, only caring about money. And that's why I was abandoned." "Rosé? I'm not Rosa. I'm Betty, who used to date you." "Betty? But you look totally different. You abandoned me, so I had plastic surgery. I've changed into your type, haven't I?" "Wait a minute. I can't comprehend. My mind's all over the place. What does this mean?" "I approached you for revenge. It turned out that Rosa, the mistress, was actually a woman named Betty who used to date my husband. They were in a long-term relationship, but he dumped Betty for wealth and married me. Unforgiving. Betty had plastic surgery to transform herself into Rosa and approached him again. You took all the savings we had for our wedding and married Mally. You spat out that being with me would make you poor. At that time, I was carrying our child. But you abandoned both of us. I miscarried soon after losing my beloved child. I worked frantically, saved money, and had surgery to show you that I could be better. You fell for me instantly without realizing I was the woman you had abandoned. I'm not pregnant with your child now. It's all a lie. After abandoning me and our unborn child back then, now you dare say you want to raise a child with me." My husband just slumped down to his knees. "You thought you could have your ideal woman and wealth at the same time. It won't go as smoothly as you think." And for a while, I was also dumbfounded, not comprehending what was happening. Betty said to me, "Mally, I'm truly sorry for involving you in my revenge. Regardless of the outcome, I will also properly pay the compensation money as the mistress. Though, I'm glad I learned of Carl's true colors. Leaving such a guy was the right decision. I won't claim any compensation from you. I'll just make Carl pay." I spoke to my husband, who was cradling his head in despair. "Now I finally understand your true nature. I have solid evidence of the affair. If you say you won't pay the compensation, I'll consult a lawyer properly." Afterwards, the divorce with my husband was finalized. But through a lawyer, I made sure he paid the compensation money. It turned out my money-grabbing husband had also been embezzling company money and received disciplinary action. No one knows what or where he is now. Since that incident, Betty and I became friends and get along well. Talking about my ex-husband while having a drink with Betty is incredibly enjoyable. Next time, if Ivers gets a new boyfriend, we plan to introduce them to each other. Thank you for watching the video all the way to the end. If you resonated with the content, please leave a positive rating and a comment.